911, what's your emergency? There was silence. Just faint breathing on the line. The dispatcher, Lisa Monroe, was used to strange calls. Her shift had started like any other, a domestic disturbance, a shoplifting report, a broken tail light. But this one was different. I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza, a boy's voice finally said. Lisa raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry. You've called 911. Yes, the boy replied, calm but strained. Large pepperoni. Extra cheese. Her instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. The tone didn't match the words, it was too flat, too tense. Lisa leaned forward in her chair. Is there someone there with you? Someone who shouldn't know you're calling 911? A pause. Yes. Lisa typed rapidly. The call was traced to a suburban neighborhood in a quiet town just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. Single-family homes, well-kept lawns, nothing unusual. Do you need help right now? She asked. Yes. Are you in danger? Another whisper. Yes. Lisa's fingers flew over the keyboard, signaling for dispatch to send officers. She kept him on the line. I understand. We're sending help. Can you stay with me? But there was a noise in the background, a creaking door, followed by muffled footsteps. The boy's breath hitched. I have to go, he whispered. He's coming. The line went dead. Officer Derek Hayes was the first to respond. He'd been patrolling the east side when the call came in, suspicious 911, possible hostage situation. At first, it sounded like a joke, but then he saw the urgency in the dispatcher's notes. The address led him to a modest one-story home. Lights were off inside. Curtains drawn. No cars in the driveway. He parked a few houses down and approached on foot. As he reached the front porch, he saw the door, slightly ajar. Backup was 2 minutes away. He knocked softly. No answer. Then, from inside, a faint sound, like someone breathing hard, like someone crying. Hand on his holster, Derek pushed the door open slowly. What he found inside was not what he expected. The living room was quiet. A coffee mug sat untouched on the table. A television flickered on mute, a cartoon, still playing. And then he saw him, a boy, no older than 12, crouched behind the sofa, eyes wide with fear. Derek knelt down. Hey! You called us? The boy nodded but didn't speak. He kept looking over his shoulder, toward the hallway. Derek moved slowly, gently placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. Where is he? The boy didn't have to answer. A floorboard creaked down the hallway. Derek stood up quickly, drawing his weapon. The boy ducked back behind the couch. A tall shadow appeared at the end of the hall. Police! Derek shouted. Show me your hands. But the man didn't move. Just stood there, half-lit in the glow of the hallway light. And then, slowly, he raised his hands. Within minutes, 2 more officers arrived. The man was taken into custody without a struggle. He said his name was Mark Ridley, the boy's stepfather. He's confused, Ridley muttered. I didn't do anything. He watches too much TV. But the bruises on the boy's arm said otherwise. Paramedics arrived next. The boy refused to speak for a while. He clung to the officer like a lifeline. Only when his stepfather was driven away in the cruiser did he whisper his name, Eli. At the station, things became more complicated. Eli sat with a child services advocate, silent and withdrawn. But gradually, he opened up. The bruises, he said, weren't new. And this wasn't the first time he'd tried to call for help. He doesn't let me talk on the phone, Eli said. He watches everything. But I remembered from a movie, you can call 911 and pretend to order pizza if you're in danger. Lisa Monroe, the dispatcher, heard that and felt a chill run down her spine. Eli had been smart. Too smart for someone so young. "What else did he do to you?" the advocate asked gently. Eli looked down. "He kept me in the basement. Said if I ever told anyone, he'd make me disappear like my mom." That's when the room went silent. Back at the house, investigators began searching the property. Eli had mentioned the basement, but there was no door visible on the main floor. A detective found it behind a bookshelf in the hallway, a hidden entrance, padlocked from the outside. When they broke the lock and entered, the air changed. It was colder. Damp. The basement looked like a storage room at first. Old furniture, dusty boxes. Then they found the mattress on the floor. The small tray with uneaten food. A broken flashlight. Scratches on the wall. And in the corner, something worse, a bundle of worn clothes, stained and torn, piled neatly next to a child's stuffed bear. But no sign of a woman. No sign of Eli's mother. The next morning, detectives brought Eli back to speak again. This time, he was calmer. He told them about the nights in the basement, the strange rules, the locked doors. But it wasn't until one of them gently asked, "Do you know what happened to your mom?" that his expression changed. He looked them dead in the eye and said, "She's still here." The detective frowned. "What do you mean?" "She talks to me," Eli said. "Through the vents. At night." At first, they thought it was trauma. Just a scared child, inventing hope. But when forensic teams ran sound tests in the basement, they did find something unusual, an old vent system that connected to a crawlspace behind the walls. And in that crawlspace, they found something strange, a torn piece of clothing. Blood-stained. DNA testing would take days, but something in the detective's gut said it belonged to the missing mother, Rachel Ridley. Only now, the case was no longer just about abuse. It was potentially something far darker. And just as they started digging into Mark Ridley's past, a sealed file turned up, from 3 years ago. A missing persons report. Filed by Rachel's sister. Closed without explanation. That night, Eli was placed in protective custody. He slept in a warm bed, surrounded by stuffed animals donated by volunteers. For the first time in a long time, he felt safe. But around 3:17 a.m., he woke up screaming. When a nurse ran into the room, she found him sitting up, eyes wide in panic. "She was there," he whispered. "In the hallway. My mom." The nurse gently laid him back down. "You were dreaming, sweetheart. You're safe now." But Eli kept staring at the door. "No," he said, voice trembling. "She was trying to warn me." The morning after Eli's nightmare, Detective Sarah Collins returned to the Ridley home with a search warrant and a deep sense of unease. Something about the boy's words haunted her, "She was trying to warn me." Collins had seen children under stress, children inventing stories to cope with trauma, but Eli hadn't struck her as confused. If anything, he seemed certain. And that house, something about it didn't sit right. The basement had already revealed one horror, but now they were searching deeper. She ordered a full structural scan, including thermal imaging and ground-penetrating radar. If Rachel Ridley had been hidden, or worse, buried, in or near that house, Collins was going to find her. Meanwhile, the team uncovered something chilling. Behind the boiler room wall, which looked solid but gave off a hollow echo when tapped, they found a narrow space. It wasn't large enough to be a room. More like a hidden channel that ran the length of the basement wall. Inside was a camera. Not powered, but old. Dusty. Facing downward toward where Eli's mattress had once been. Whoever had put it there had wanted to watch, but never be seen. Collins stared at it, bile rising in her throat. This wasn't just control or abuse. This was obsession. "Bag it," she said to the forensic team. "Get it to tech." That same afternoon, Eli sat in a quiet room with a trauma counselor. He was coloring. A house, a son, and a little boy holding the hand of a woman with long brown hair. The woman had no face. "Is that your mom?" the counselor asked gently. He nodded. "She always hummed the same song. Even when I was scared." "What song?" He picked up the red crayon and drew a heart over the woman's chest. "She used to call it the safe song. She said if I ever heard her humming it when she wasn't in the room, it meant something was very wrong." The counselor didn't push further. But later, she reported the phrase to the detective team. A few hours later, Detective Collins requested audio testing on the vent system. She had a theory. If Eli claimed to hear her, through the walls, maybe there was recorded audio being played at certain times. Conditioning. Psychological abuse. But no tape recorders were found in the vents. Then came the breakthrough. The tech team managed to retrieve partial footage from the old camera in the wall. It was damaged, but not completely wiped. Collins sat with her jaw clenched, watching hours of grainy black and white silence. Most of the footage showed the boy sitting quietly. Lying still. Eating. Crying. Then, one clip made her freeze. It was timestamped 2:41 a.m., 2 weeks before the call. Eli was asleep, curled into himself. And then, from the wall, the sound of humming. The boy stirred. The humming continued, soft, eerie, familiar. Eli sat up. "Mom," he whispered. And then the video cut out. No movement. No source of the sound. Just humming. Detective Collins visited Eli that evening, holding a small music box she'd taken from the Ridley bedroom. When she opened it, it played a soft tune. Eli shook his head. "That's not it." "Do you remember it?" she asked. Eli nodded. "I can hum it." He did. A simple melody. Strange. Haunting. The police ran it through databases to see if it matched known lullabies, music box songs, or classical pieces. It didn't. Not exactly. But something close popped up in an old home video Rachel Ridley had posted on social media 6 years ago. A blurry video of her holding Eli as a toddler. She was humming the same tune, original, improvised, almost a whisper. In the video, she looked tired. Sad. "Say hi to Daddy," she said into the camera. But there was something cold in her voice. Something resigned. Mark Ridley's interrogation had gone nowhere. He denied everything. Rachel left, he insisted. She couldn't handle being a mom. She just left one day. "I covered for her so Eli wouldn't be hurt. That's all." But when asked why he never reported her missing, or told Eli the truth, he shifted uncomfortably. "You don't understand," he snapped. "She had problems. I was protecting the kid. By locking him in a basement." Collins fired back. He stared at her, eyes hard. "You don't know what she was capable of." But when asked to elaborate, he clammed up. Collins turned to Rachel's sister, Dana. They hadn't spoken in years, but Dana had filed the original missing persons report that was later dismissed. "Rachel was scared," Dana said quietly. "She told me once that Mark didn't let her leave the house alone. That he watched her. That he kept secrets in the garage." "Secrets?" Dana hesitated. "She never explained. But once, she told me she'd found something in his locked box in the attic. And that if anything happened to her, it wasn't an accident." With a warrant, they searched the Ridley attic. Dusty, empty. Except for one thing, a metal toolbox, locked tight, tucked behind the insulation. Inside were several unsettling items. An old wallet that didn't belong to Mark. A woman's ID, not Rachel's. A flash drive. And a yellowed newspaper clipping from 2003, local girl missing after roadside breakdown. The missing girl's name? Melissa Grant. Not related to Rachel. Not from Ohio. From Indiana. The article had never been followed up. No updates. Cold case. On the flash drive were hundreds of photographs. Most were harmless looking at first: gas stations, highways, road signs. Then came the portraits. Women. Some smiling, some mid-step, all taken without their knowledge. And in a few, a familiar face. Rachel. Pregnant. Watching, walking, unaware. The time stamp stretched back 7 years before she ever met Mark Ridley. It looked like he had followed her, possibly for years. Detective Collins felt sick. The evidence was mounting into something larger than abuse or confinement. This was stalking. Predation. A carefully constructed life based on lies. And Rachel had vanished after discovering something. She never ran. She was silenced. The crawlspace behind the wall wasn't the only one. A second one led to a sealed trapdoor under the back deck. It had been missed in the initial search. Now, with dogs and radar, they opened it. What they found wasn't a body. It was a suitcase. Inside. Women's clothing, some of Rachel's, and others unidentifiable. A journal, hers, with only a few legible pages. And on one of them, scribbled like a warning. If Eli hears the humming, it means I'm still close. Tell him I never left him. That night, Eli slept at a temporary foster home. Safer. Warmer. But at 3:11 a.m., he woke again. And this time, the humming wasn't from the vent. It was outside the window. A woman's figure stood there. Barefoot. Still. She didn't move. Eli didn't scream. He sat up slowly, eyes wide, and whispered, "Mom?" The woman didn't answer. Just lifted one hand, and pointed toward the woods. Then vanished. In the morning, search teams combed the edge of the forest behind the Ridley home. At the base of a dry creek, buried under rocks, they found human remains. The medical examiner confirmed it 2 days later: Rachel Ridley. But the final twist? The body had only been dead for 3 weeks. Rachel hadn't died years ago. She had been alive, possibly held somewhere unknown, for over 2 years before being killed. The killer? Mark Ridley was already in jail. So if not him, then who? Rachel Ridley had been dead for 3 weeks. The autopsy confirmed it: cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. No defensive wounds. No drugs. But what truly stunned Detective Sarah Collins wasn't the manner of death, it was the condition of her body. Rachel had clearly not died in the woods. She had been well nourished, clean, her nails trimmed, her hair recently cut. In other words, someone had been caring for her, very recently. And that meant someone else had been involved all along. Someone who had held Rachel captive for years, and then killed her. But who? The news hit Eli hard. He was kept away from the details, but he knew enough. Knew that the woman in the woods, the one who hummed to him, the one who pointed, was his mother. But he also knew something the adults didn't. "She wasn't trying to scare me," he said softly to his counselor. "She was warning me." The counselor asked, "Warning you about what?" Eli looked out the window. His voice was calm, but distant. "He's not the only one." Detective Collins wasn't sleeping much. The more she dug into Mark Ridley's background, the darker it became. But what truly shocked her was that Ridley had no clear past before 2006. No high school transcripts. No medical records. No driver's license. He had appeared, fully formed, in Ohio in early 2006, applying for a job at a small hardware store. He had the ID, the social security number, the paperwork. But everything before that? Vanished. That's when Collins pulled a favor from a friend at the FBI. What they found changed everything. Mark Ridley's real name wasn't Mark Ridley. It was Derek Madsen, a name connected to a cold case from 1998 in Missouri. A man with a history of violence, suspected in 2 disappearances, but never charged. He'd fled after a woman he dated went missing, leaving behind nothing but her phone and a cryptic journal entry. He says I belong to him. He says I don't need a name anymore. After that, Madsen disappeared. Until now. But if Rachel had only died recently, where had she been for the last 3 years? The woods had no signs of a camp. No shack. No temporary shelter. No caves. Yet her body was found fully dressed, clean, and recently fed. One thing was clear, she wasn't out there alone. Someone else had kept her alive. Someone still out there. Collins went back to the journal in the suitcase, Rachel's final words. Most of the pages were ruined by mold or water damage, but one stuck out. I hear voices at night. Not his. A woman. She tells me to wait. That help is coming. That the boy will remember. Who was the woman? And how had she communicated with Rachel? Then came the first strange call. It came from a blocked number. The voice on the line was female, raspy, but steady. I knew she was dead the moment the humming stopped. Collins froze. Who is this? I'm the one who kept her alive. The line went dead. Tracking the call proved impossible. The signal had been bounced through several international IP addresses, a level of sophistication far beyond most locals. But Collins had a feeling this wasn't about technology. It was about secrets. And someone was trying to reveal them, or maybe control the pace at which they were revealed. They began canvassing the area around the woods. Farmers. Park rangers. People with land near the Ridley property. That's when they found the Hobbs farm. Old. Barely functional. Run by a reclusive woman named Agatha Hobbs, late 60s. Her property backed up directly to the Ridley's woods. At first glance, there was nothing suspicious about her. A lonely widow. A few goats. A vegetable patch. But when Collins asked about Rachel Ridley, Agatha looked away for half a second too long. Then she lied. I've never heard that name. The warrant came 2 days later. The barn looked abandoned, but inside it was something else entirely. One of the stalls had been converted into a hidden room, behind a wall of hay bales and rotting plywood. Inside, a cot. A medical kit. Food wrappers. A mirror. A hairbrush with strands of Rachel's hair. DNA confirmed it, Rachel had been kept there for months. Possibly years. Agatha was arrested. At first, she refused to speak. Not a single word. Not to her lawyer, not to the officers. Until Collins herself stepped into the interview room. Did you kill her? She asked. Agatha looked up slowly. I saved her. The truth, as it came out, was more twisted than Collins could have imagined. Agatha Hobbs had met Rachel years ago, in 2017, when Rachel wandered onto her property, barefoot, bruised, and terrified. She had escaped from Mark. Agatha, a woman with no family and no faith in the system, had taken her in. Hid her. Helped her heal. But Rachel had been afraid to go to the police. He said he had people, she told Agatha. He said no one would believe me. Agatha believed her. And when Rachel begged her not to contact anyone, she agreed. They lived in secret for almost 6 months. Agatha would go into town for supplies. Rachel stayed hidden. But then something changed. Rachel became paranoid. Claimed someone else was watching. Said she saw lights in the woods at night. Heard voices not her own. She started writing in her journal. Scribbling names Agatha didn't recognize. One night, she was gone. Vanished from the barn. Agatha searched for days, but there was no sign of her. Then, 3 weeks ago, she returned. Dirty. Cold. Injured. She wouldn't say where she had been. Just that, they had found her and put her back. Agatha asked who. Rachel just whispered, the man in the glass. The next night, Rachel died. Agatha claimed she found her near the creek, her head bleeding. She tried to save her, but it was too late. She buried her, not out of guilt, she said, but to protect Eli. She said someone else would come for him, Agatha whispered in the interrogation room. Someone worse than Mark. The investigators were left with more questions than answers. Who were they? Who was the man in the glass? Why was Rachel so terrified in her final days? And what did she mean when she said Eli was the key? Then something even stranger happened. Collins received a package. No return address. Inside, an old camcorder. Taped to it, a note in Rachel's handwriting. If I die before they find me, show this to my son. He must remember. They loaded the footage. It was Rachel, seated in the barn. Her face tired but determined. Eli, she began, if you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it. But I need you to know the truth. She took a deep breath. Mark wasn't working alone. She looked around nervously. There's a network. They call it the clearing. They take women. For obedience. For silence. Some don't survive. I only got away because one of them helped me escape. She held up a flash drive. Everything I've learned is here. Faces. Names. Places. And something else, something you need to know about yourself. The camera shook. Rachel glanced off screen. Her voice dropped. You were born into this. But you can break it. You're stronger than them. You're not like him. Then, a noise. Something crashing off screen. Rachel turned in panic. The screen went black. Detective Sarah Collins stared at the footage from Rachel's camcorder. The final moments, crystal clear fear on Rachel's face, played over and over. The audio froze at the crash. Whoever was in the barn with her was close. Too close. Sarah gathered her team early the next morning. They'd obtained warrants for the flash drive Rachel mentioned. They'd begin extracting data as soon as it arrived back at the lab. But time was against them. Someone in the clearing was watching, and may have spotted Rachel's camcorder in the barn before they shut it down. 1. Decrypting Rachel's message. The forensic team battled encryption all day. Finally, late evening, they managed to access the drive Rachel held up before dropping the camera. Inside, a folder named My Son. Subfolders. Names. Locations. Voices. DNA matches. What caught Sarah's attention immediately were names of towns, rural places in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Missouri, locations that matched cases of missing women. Inside Voices was what sounded like Rachel's whispering, reciting a name, Grace. Ivy, a clip ended with a whispered plea, they watch. They know. Sarah felt a chill. Under DNA matches, results cross-referenced matches for partial DNA found in the barn, there were multiple connections. A woman listed in names, Grace Weathers, had a match to partial DNA found near where Rachel's body was discovered. One by one, Sarah's team realized this was not just a random network. It was a coordinated criminal syndicate trafficking women, abusing them, recording them. 2. Identifying the network. The next days passed in a blur of surveillance, interviews, and digging. The phone call Rachel made from the barn spoke of others. With the encrypted flash drive, they uncovered phone numbers, addresses, money transfers, all linked to a group that seemed to orchestrate taking women who knew too much. 2 names kept appearing. Elias, the glassman, Hawthorne. Cora Whitfield. Sarah remembered Rachel's phrase, the man in the glass. They found Hawthorne owned properties in rural Indiana. Investors remembered him as a tech millionaire who had suddenly vanished after a scandal. Whitfield was a local nurse with no criminal record, but records showed she had frequently driven to all of the little towns listed in Rachel's flash drive. 3. Questionable ally. One night, Eli's therapist texted Sarah, "Eli is asking about his mother's friend," saying, "The lady in the woods came again last night." Sarah decided to bring Eli in for a calm meeting. He arrived in a foster home counselor's car. He was quiet at first. Then, in a soft voice, Cora came. He shuffled uncomfortably. "She said Mom sent her to keep me safe." Sarah exhaled. "Did she say anything else?" "He gave me this." He held out a folded piece of paper. Inside, a hand-drawn picture. It was Rachel, but older. Standing in a barn. Holding Eli's hand. There, behind them, a face barely sketched, the woman who stood at his window. "Cora?" Eli pointed at her glassed-in eyes in the drawing. "That's her." 4. Confronting Cora. Police located Cora's address in a small Indiana town. Sarah and a team went that afternoon. Cora Whitfield opened the door. Dirt on her coat, though her hair and eyes were sharp. She looked exhausted, but determined. "No weapons?" Sarah asked, spotting a butcher knife on the counter. Cora nodded. "It wasn't for harming. I didn't want you to find her." Sarah gestured her inside. "Who is her?" Cora sank into a chair. Tears streamed quietly. "Rachel told me about Mark, and the organization. She was supposed to disappear. I kept her hidden in woods near here. She called it the sanctuary." Sarah paused. "Sanctuary?" 5. The sanctuary. In whispered detail, Cora described a hidden cabin, reachable only by a network of hidden paths. An old deer trail, a makeshift sign on a tree. Saw her only at night. She didn't trust me completely, not at first. Cora explained that the clearing's operatives had found the sanctuary. They tracked Rachel through an encrypted GPS patch she wore on her shoe. They came in the night. "They beat her," Cora said. "I ran to help her, but," she sobbed. "He killed her, Hawthorne." Sarah's team found that circumstantial, but investigators confirmed Hawthorne traveled to Indiana around that time. Purchase records showed he bought medical-grade sedatives. "You suspect a conspiracy," Sarah said, voice low. "That's racketeering, kidnapping, trafficking." Cora nodded. She handed over maps that Rachel had drawn. Paths through deep woods, barns, abandoned silos. 6. Another disappearance. 2 days later, surveillance spots Hawthorne's SUV near the forest edge where Rachel was found. Cora's maps had diesel stains. The team fanned out. Near an abandoned silo, they found evidence, footprints, broken branches, blood traces. Nearby, they stumbled on another person, a woman crouched, mud-stained, afraid. She was alive, but wounded. It was Grace Weathers, the woman whose partial DNA showed a match to the barn contents. Sarah rushed forward. Grace looked up, hollow eyes, hungry for rescue. She whispered, "I need to find my daughter." Sarah hugged her. Grace shivered. Cora got me out, but I had to hide. 7. Eli's role. Back at headquarters, civil attorneys prepared custody for Eli. Sarah realized he was not just witness, he could be target again. She met with Cora quietly. We need protection measures, cameras, alerts. Cora placed a small, black box on Sarah's desk. Personal GPS alarm. Rachel swore by them. 8. Cliffhanger into Part 5. That night, in Eli's foster room, monitors tracked his location like a soft whisper. His counselor tucked him in. All seemed calm. But outside, dark headlights flickered, hundreds of feet away. Someone was watching. I can see you. The words appeared on the foster home security monitor at 2:14 a.m., glowing across the screen in a simple white font. There was no signature, no sender, no explanation. Just those 4 words, cold, direct, and terrifying. Officer Dana Gray, stationed on Eli's overnight security team, rushed toward his room. Eli was asleep, clutching the same sketch Rachel had once given him. The screen on the wall flickered, then shut off. Whoever was watching had access to their system. And they were inside the firewall. 1. Surveillance breach. At the precinct, Sarah Collins stood in the middle of a chaotic storm. Forensics were on edge. IT security worked non-stop to determine how their internal foster protection system had been hacked. The security breach wasn't just local. It was strategic. Whoever broke in knew how to move silently, leaving no digital fingerprints. They left one trace, Officer Gray said, pointing to a code fragment on the screen. This string showed up right before the screen went black. The text read, glass.man.activate. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They weren't just being watched. They were being baited. 2. Hawthorne's history. As Sarah dove deeper into Elias the Glassman, Hawthorne's background, the pieces started to come together. Born in 1978. Grew up in southern Missouri. Studied engineering, disappeared from public records in 2001. Between 2003 and 2011, his name was linked to at least 5 shell corporations, companies used to buy remote properties, warehouses, and even medical equipment. But what was most chilling was this: he had once worked for a behavioral modification lab that specialized in neurosurveillance, recording emotional responses through visual stimulation. He didn't just watch people. He knew how to manipulate their minds. 3. The cabin in the water. Following up on maps Rachel had drawn, Collins led a joint task force into an off-grid zone along the Ohio River, a location marked with only 2 letters, GH. What they found shocked even the seasoned officers. A cabin stood half-submerged in a flooded marsh, disguised from drone surveillance by a canopy of trees. Inside, there were chairs bolted to the floor. Wires ran along the walls. A projector screen was rigged with emotional response trackers. And beneath the floorboards, boxes of tapes labeled with first names only. Rachel. Grace. Ivy. Others. One tape, half corroded by water, was labeled, Eli. Sarah's fingers trembled as she held it. Eli had never been recorded. Or so they thought. 4. The revelation. Cora, still in protective custody, wept as she watched the footage. In one video, a much younger Eli, around 4 or 5, was seen inside a sterile white room, drawing silently. Rachel sat across from him, her expression panicked. A voice from a speaker crackled, "If you want him to stop, say his number." Rachel refused. The screen went black. Sarah turned to Cora. "What does 'say his number' mean?" Cora swallowed. Eli wasn't born in a hospital. Mark, the man you know as Ridley, he chose Eli. Or created him. Sarah stiffened. "You mean adoption?" "No. I mean design. In a lab. 5. Eli's origin. Rachel had written in her journals that Mark had insisted Eli was different. Not like other children. He claimed Eli would be the next phase. At first, Rachel believed it was religious delusion, until Eli started exhibiting traits no child his age should have shown. Complex puzzles. Memory recall. Deep empathy. And visions. I saw the lady before she came, Eli once told his therapist. At first, everyone thought it was trauma. Now, Sarah wasn't sure. Had Eli been programmed? Or born with something more? And if he was the next phase? What exactly was he created for? 6. Return to the foster home. Sarah personally returned to Eli's foster home. She found him building a structure with Legos. A tall tower made entirely of clear bricks. "What are you making?" she asked gently. He didn't look up. "A mirror," he said. Then he paused. "He's not done watching." "Who?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Eli turned slowly toward her, his voice flat. "The man in the glass." 7. A secret recording. That night, Eli's counselor heard him speaking in his sleep. She placed a recorder by his bed, worried about recurring nightmares. But what the tape captured sent chills down Sarah's spine. Eli's voice, calm, monotone, recited names and coordinates. Sarah cross-referenced the locations. 2 of them matched abandoned facilities owned by Hawthorne's shell companies. One was a converted orphanage in Nebraska. Another was a shut-down radio tower deep in Appalachia. 8. Final puzzle piece. Rachel's final note on the flash drive, hidden in a text file buried under encryption, was short. "They'll come for him. He's the prototype. Don't let him see mirrors." That's how they talk to him. Suddenly, the message on the monitor, "I can see you," took on new meaning. Eli wasn't just a survivor. He was the target. The link. And somehow, the very thing this secret syndicate had spent years building, and hiding. 9. Preparing for the final confrontation. Sarah and her team worked fast. They placed Eli in an undisclosed facility under federal watch. Cora, Grace, and 2 other survivors were relocated. But as Rachel had warned, they were still coming. And now they were desperate. One final message arrived, this time as a handwritten envelope on Sarah's own car windshield. "You've opened the door. Now step inside." Inside the envelope, an address. And a glass key. 1. The glass key. Detective Sarah Collins stared at the envelope on her desk. An ordinary manila folder until she pulled out the single crystal key. Its surface caught the light, facets glinting like it held its own heartbeat. No note. Just the key and an address scrawled inside, 62 Hollow Lane, Monroe, Indiana. That same evening, Sarah drove out under the dusk sky. Beside her on the passenger seat, the key lay on a folded county map. She dialed Cora's number. "I'm going in alone," Sarah said. "If anything happens, check 62, trust no one." Cora agreed, voice trembling. Sarah hung up, pocketed the key, and exited the car. The house ahead was an old chapel, rebranded, no signage. Windows dark. Doors locked. She slipped it open with the crystal key, a perfect fit, no force. 2. Inside the chapel. The entrance hall was empty except for a polished glass table in the center, almost altar-like. On it, a single framed photo of Eli as a toddler, arms outstretched. Around the frame, etched words. "Prototype of hope." Sarah's breath hitched. Hope. She touched the frame, and the floor behind the altar shifted, a sound like gears turning. A hidden panel slid open to reveal a door leading downward. Torch in hand, Sarah descended into a high-ceilinged room filled with glass cubicles, each one containing artifacts: an old baby blanket, a lock of hair, a broken toy. Names were etched on metal plates beneath the glass: Rachel, Grace, Ivy, and others she recognized. Then she found it, a full-size glass cell with a small boy inside, a strain of hair just like Eli's, messy curls, face turned away. He held a silver cube in his hands and watched Sarah through reflections. She gasped, and he blinked. 3. The lab in the basement. Beyond the cubicle hall was a research lab, sterile but abandoned. Test tubes, syringes, notebooks strewn on metal tables. The smell of antiseptic, nostalgic yet sinister. Sarah rifled through file cabinets. One notebook stood out. Subject EL018, Development Log. It chronicled every stage. Genetic manipulation. Observational trials. Emotional conditioning. The boy is nearly perfect, one entry read. He remembers all events. Hears voices when near glass. Cannot lie. Core subject. Father, Elias Hawthorne linked as principal investigator. Sarah's stomach turned. She headed back to the glass cubicles. The boy inside, about Eli's age, but pale. He murmured her name, Detective Collins. Sarah realized with horror, this was another Eli, Subject 018. A prototype. Behind the glass, two voices shouted, footsteps above. Then the glass slid open. A man in a white coat, tall, silver hair, eyes like polished steel. "Ah, Detective Collins," he said. "You must be exhausted." He extended his hand. "I'm Dr. Sebastian Hale, Chief Architect of the Clearing Project." 4. Confrontation. Sarah leveled her weapon. "This is kidnapping and illegal experimentation." He shook his head. "No. This is evolution." He explained, Hawthorne's network, the clearing, was designed to create the perfect human. Emotionally aware, observant, unable to lie, controlled by glass. Subjected to trauma and subliminal messaging to shape them. Eli was the first true success. The glass key? Sarah demanded. "It grants access to the project. The prototype is my masterpiece." He gestured toward Subject 018. "He was created for the world. Eli is my living proof." Sarah glanced at the boy inside the cell. Tears pooled in her eyes. "That's why Rachel fled. She destroyed my research notes and tried to save Eli." Dr. Hale smiled softly. "Her sacrifice cost me a year. But I found her again, killing her saved the project." 5. Race against time. Outside, Sarah heard footsteps, rushing. Cora and Grace, led by Agent Michaels, burst in. Michaels pointed a weapon at Dr. Hale. Cora lunged forward. "How could you?" she screamed. "You killed Rachel." He shrugged, "Collateral. Science moves forward." Sarah took aim at the locked cage mechanism. "Open this now, or I'll shoot." His eyes hardened. Then a phone beeped. He thumbed an alert. "You leave, I detonate the glass cell's insulation, poison gas." Cora backed away, tears on her cheeks. Grace screamed at the injustice. Sarah's mind flashed, children and women locked here. Innocent. But Subject 018 began banging on the glass. The alarm startled Dr. Hale. "Ryan," he yelled at a guard in the hallway. "Activate the release system." The guard looked conflicted, then hesitated. Sarah realized he was one of Hale's own people, maybe still loyal, maybe not. 6. The betrayal. At that moment, the guard approached the cubicle release panel. Sarah raised her weapon. "Stand down." The guard froze. "He can't, Hale will kill me." Tell me his plan. The guard swallowed. The gas. It kills glass subjects slowly enough they'll die horribly if not contained. Sarah spoke to Dr. Hale, the boy can live. Stop this. Hale's defiance faded. He gestured at the prototype. Do we deserve humanity if we hold someone else's son as our art? Then, slowly, he spoke for the first time with remorse. The key, it was yours. Rachel took over the lab keys, knowing you might come. She would want this stopped. 7. Rescue. Sarah fired once into the release mechanism. Sparks flew. The cell glass hissed as it retracted upward. Subject 018 stumbled out, collapsing into Grace's arms. The prototype's eyes locked with Eli's in the hallway, two living reflections of one design. Sarah cuffed Dr. Hale. He didn't resist. Code was entered to disable the gas system. The children were unsealed. Women and survivors broke from their cells. Ivy, Rachel's flash drive showed, had survived, another prototype. They gasped at seeing each other. Sarah led them up the stairs, past the glass altar, toward freedom. 8. The aftermath. Weeks later, the survivors sat in a conference room, lawyers, therapists, advocates. Subject 018, given the name Aaron, held Eli's hand. Grace and Ivy leaned close. Cora sat at the end. So proud of delivering justice, so broken by what she had helped Rachel do. Elias Hawthorne was dead, found hanged in his cell, a broken crystal shard clutched like a twisted key. Rachel's sacrifice, driven him mad. Detective Collins offered words at the press conference. This story is about survival, about one mother's courage, and the human spirit's capacity to heal. 9. Reflection. At home, in softly lit room, Eli pulled out the silver cube from Subject 018's cell, now cleaned, but still reflecting kaleidoscopes when held to the light. He placed it on his bedside table beside a picture of Rachel and Sarah. Lying under the covers, he whispered, "Good night, Mom." Sarah paused outside his door, looking at the cube over his shoulder. Mirrors. Glass. They once held power. Now they were symbols of truth, resilience, unbroken reflection. 10. The lesson. This story ends not with a villain vanquished, but with a lesson. True strength isn't genetic engineering, algorithmic control, or hidden experimentation. It's human love, human connection, and inescapable choice. The clearing sought to bend nature. But it was the power of a mother's voice, a secret lullaby, an encrypted message, a pizza call to 911, that became louder than glass. And Aaron, no matter the name or design, may have been born in a lab, but he lived, and won, by the strength of the human heart.